Are you ready for something that is most likely gonna be the most extreme Bethesda fanboy cope you have ever seen in your life?
Late last night, a Phil Spencer deposition from late 2022 was uploaded as a part of the ongoing FTC versus Microsoft court case. This, of course, over Microsoft's attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard, but attached to this deposition were a plethora of other highly confidential files detailing Microsoft's internal plans for the next Xbox console and a full roadmap for Bethesda's upcoming releases. And yes, this is massive. We may be looking at one of the biggest leaks in gaming history right now. The document in question around Bethesda is the ZeniMax Management Forecast, ZeniMax being the parent company of Bethesda. This seems to describe tons of upcoming releases for Bethesda, like a Fallout 3 remaster, an Oblivion remaster, but also things like a timeline as to
which are gonna probably be disasters.
When the Elder Scrolls 6 could be coming out. And right off the bat, there's a ton of confusion around what this document actually is and what it actually is representing. Because no, I don't think the Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out next year. This ZeniMax Management Forecast was created by Microsoft around July of 2020. And this is very notable because this is from when Microsoft was still in talks to buy ZeniMax. It's before Microsoft actually owned Bethesda. This document basically seems like it was Microsoft discussing the proposed release schedule for Bethesda's upcoming games, as well as going over how much money they expect to make from those releases. So Microsoft's basically looking at Bethesda's internal roadmap and trying to decide to buy them or not. And evidently they liked what they saw because of course now Microsoft does own Bethesda. But there's some major reveals on this list. An Indiana Jones game that is set to drop very soon, a remaster is on the way.
After the disaster of the movies, I'm sure people are gonna love it. I'm sure people are gonna be so hyped. As hyped as for the Dial of Destiny and whatnot. I'm sure. Oh baby, my soul is ready.
Of not only Oblivion, but also Fallout 3. There's going to be a bunch of sequels coming, like Doom 0 Year, Ghostwire Tokyo 2, Dishonored 3, and of course, The Elder Scrolls 6. And just right off the bat, this is one of those situations where I genuinely feel bad for both Microsoft and Bethesda. This leak is rough. Bethesda's entire planned slate is out there in the public now, and on the Microsoft side, their entire console slate is now out in the public. But it's still out there, and we're going to talk about what was revealed. So running through this list in order, the fiscal year 20 stuff was largely on time. Basically, all of this content is already out and you can play it. I saw some confusion over the Fallout Shelter Online listing as a mobile release, but yeah, this is a thing. Fallout Shelter Online did release, it's just exclusive to Asian markets, so most Westerners have never heard or played it. But then in fiscal year 21, things start to get a bit more interesting, as we can immediately see Starfield at the top of the list. And this is one of those big considerations you have to take when looking at this planned list. We're looking at very old information here. We've heard in the past that before Microsoft bought out Bethesda, Starfield was actually slated to drop in 2021. But once Microsoft acquired them, they gave Bethesda more time to work on the game.
Imagine how disastrous this would be if it dropped at 2021. I think Microsoft absolutely saved, well, not much to save, honestly, from Starfield. But I think they absolutely saved it. Because if that didn't happen, it would probably be another Fallout 76. Most likely even worse than Fallout 76 on release. Or how it currently is, because the game's still shit. Don't buy it.
So then the release date was pushed to 2022 and eventually got delayed until 2023, and we just of course had the game come out. And we can see here concretely that Bethesda originally planned to follow that 3-year release schedule and have Fallout 76 in 2018, but then Starfield in 2021. So just right off the bat, if you're loving Starfield, if you like how expansive and in-depth some of the game systems are, it really seems like you have
futuristic spacesuit in future. Get one-shotted by a gun. That's from 5 billion years ago. Nice.
It really seems like you have Microsoft to thank for that. They gave Bethesda the opportunity to spend more time on and expand the game. On this list is also Project Hibiki, and we know that is HiFi Rush, which is also a pretty interesting one. That means HiFi Rush came out 2 years after it was originally planned to, so obviously we're seeing some internal delays occur here.
Looks like something good from 2001.
And that becomes even clearer as we go to all of the unreleased content which begins to pop up in fiscal year 2022, which means that Bethesda thought all of this content was coming in 2022, despite the fact that basically none of this has released and we're approaching the end of 2023. But we can see here there are plans for the Indiana Jones game to release, an Oblivion Remaster, and even some Starfield DLC. And this could give us a decent idea of when these things may actually come out. In a recent interview, when asked about the upcoming...
I wonder what the Starfield DLC will have. An actual story? Gameplay? More loading? Probably more loading screens if you think about it.
Indiana Jones game, Todd Howard said to talk to him next year, aka 2024, suggesting that Indiana Jones may be dropping next year. And of course, we do know Starfield DLC is currently slated to come out next year, so it seems like at least 2 of the things planned for 2022 ended up getting pushed to 2024, which could also mean that Oblivion Remaster is also slated for next year. But what is interesting is Starfield only does have one DLC list. Does this confirm that Shattered Space is the only major DLC coming to Starfield? Well, maybe yes, but also maybe no. One of the major things we have to consider as we start to move into the leak portion of this list is how many things have actually changed since this list was made. We're looking at Bethesda's internal roadmap from July of 2020. Just right off the bat, they were making predictions 4 years into the future, so they could just be flat out wrong with those predictions. But even further, immediately after this, Microsoft bought out the company and could have changed a bunch of plans. This list was made just a couple of months into the pandemic, but the pandemic of course raged on for several years after that. But obviously some things didn't change, because when we look at this Oblivion Remaster, we could reference back to the Oblivion Remaster leak we got just a few months ago. As earlier this year, somebody took to Reddit to leak a bunch of games in development at Virtuous Games, and one of them was apparently this. First, there is the Alter project, which is the remaster/remake of Oblivion. The discussions for it being a full remake are still ongoing. It is done currently using a pairing system, so it means that the remaster is running using both an Unreal Engine 5 project and the old Oblivion one. For instance, new graphics are rendered in the UE5 project, but most of the gameplay, physics, etc. is still done in Oblivion. It should be released by the end of next year/early 25, depending mostly on if it's a remake or a remaster. It is
I mean, nice, but I don't think people are gonna like it so much. Like, who's asking for this? Honestly, not a lot of people. And this is what game companies that are bad do. Like, look at the parallels with Blizzard. Blizzard releases new game, it's shit, no one likes it. Blizzard releases another new game, it's shit, no one likes it, everyone's mad. Well, what did they start doing? Remastering things. What is Bethesda currently doing? Same thing. Same thing. And they have even a worse track record currently than, for example, Blizzard. So, these remasters are gonna be probably shit that no one honestly wants.
Mostly done in Paris, but Black Shamrock also helps the studio for the art. And like, yeah, sure, this could just be a massive coincidence, but it certainly sounds like a UE5 take on Oblivion is coming in the next year or two. Which makes sense because even the Gaming Leaks mods clarified that this poster's identity is likely real. So Bethesda is very likely taking an interesting approach here, where they're going to be using 2 engines to achieve this remaster or remake. The original Oblivion engine will carry all of the gameplay features, so it'll still feel like Oblivion, but all of the visuals will be done in Unreal Engine 5, so you will get some insane visuals like this, and it'll really look like it's a next-gen game. The recent Shadow of the Colossus remake.
Even if Bethesda uses a proper engine, not the bullshit that they are currently using, do you think that honestly will save them? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because the thing is, you can't remaster shit like this. Because when you slap on a new coat of paint and it looks modern, but it still has the gameplay loops and things of 50 billion years ago, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't work that well.
Was used using this exact same technique, and it got a lot of praise for it. But as we transition into fiscal year 2023, there's definitely some higher level stuff. Reportedly, a new Doom game and its DLC are coming. There's going to be more ESO content, because of course there is, but also 2 codename projects with Project Kestrel and Project Platinum. And Project Kestrel is even slated to get an expansion a year after this. But thanks to other past leaks,
That's nice. Well, admittedly, most games are kind of expected to get an expansion after a year or something like that nowadays. It is what it is. The game is finished. when they make already the expansion pretty much ready on release. That's the reality.
You also know what this is. Project Kestrel is going to be a giant new MMO coming from ZeniMax Online Studios. Its codename was already leaked as a part of the past GeForce Now leaks, and Project Platinum was also listed in those leaks, this time listed as Indiana Jones, but it's very likely just tied to Machine Games, and Project Platinum is most likely Wolfenstein 3 or some kind of new Wolfenstein title, which honestly is kind of an insane release schedule. Bethesda expected to drop a new Doom,
Wolfenstein after the absolute failure that was the last Wolfenstein? Man, I want to see that. Man, I am interested in that, not gonna lie. Also, Dishonored 3 is coming up, and that's gonna be interesting because the Dishonored storyline pretty much was concretely ended at 2. But admittedly, the Dishonored world is awesome. I know the lore. So, you know, the Dishonored world is pretty awesome with all the things that it can actually hold.
And massive MMO all in the same year. And if all of this truly was just delayed by 2 years, then this means 2025 is going to be absolutely massive and when we'll start seeing all of these games. But of course, it's not actually that perfect. Some of these games are likely to be delayed further, and maybe some weren't even delayed as much, and we could hear—
Dude, all of these games are gonna be delayed so much, especially Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls 6. That's gonna be delayed by probably a decade or something at this rate, considering it's supposed to be made on the same BS shit engine as Star shit. Okay? So they're gonna delay that bad boy forever, pretty much at this point.
Hear about them next year. You have to imagine Wolfenstein 3 is still a ways away, as we haven't even seen anything on Indiana Jones yet. But at the very least, yeah, we have a pretty good idea that both Indiana Jones and Wolfenstein—
I think a lot of their games also are gonna be woke. Like, they're treading in that direction. Let's see you say pronoun. Oh, what do pronouns matter in your character creation window? Well, they do. Well, they probably are gonna matter a lot.
Wolfenstein are coming from Machine Games, as well as a new Doom game is on the way and is planned to get quite a bit of support. As we could also see in fiscal year 2024, there are more interesting releases. We finally see the mention of the Elder Scrolls 6, but also an expansion for the ZeniMax Online Studios' new MMO, as well as an ESO expansion. So seemingly they're going to support both ESO and the new MMO at the same time.
Well, yeah, ESO, Elder Scrolls Online is making money, so why wouldn't they support it?
Some more DLC for that released Doom game, a licensed IP game, which is pretty curious and interesting, a Fallout 3 remaster, but then also Dishonored 3 and a sequel to Ghostwire Tokyo. So of course, the most interesting thing on this list is the Elder Scrolls 6, slated as a 2024 release, and that's where things start to get pretty interesting. We recently heard Phil Spencer testify that the Elder Scrolls 6 is 5+ years away. Although despite that, and despite him being the head of Xbox, so he would definitely know, we have been getting more and more evidence that suggests the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be closer than 2028. Even just during the same trial, another lawyer testified that the Elder Scrolls 6 was coming in 2026, not 2028 at the earliest. A document pertaining to the court case that was just uploaded—
By the way, all of this makes perfect sense because different people have different information. It makes sense that no one actually knows the date.
yesterday, describes the Elder Scrolls 6 as a 2026 or later game. And of course, we have this internal roadmap that slated the Elder Scrolls 6 to drop just 3 years after Starfield, which of course would be 2026 once again. So though it could just be me being hopeful, there definitely is a decent amount of compounding evidence to suggest that the Elder Scrolls 6 could be coming sooner than you think. And honestly, that wouldn't shock me. Bethesda went through the massive engine overhaul already. We got that with Starfield. And although there'll likely be even further improvements, they've also surged to 500 developers.
Dude, Starfield would have been a great game if it came out 15 years ago. If this is supposed to be their greatest engine ever, it's shit. You should abandon it.
with Starfield, compared to nearly 100 at the time of Fallout 4, so a quicker game release and turnaround could make sense here. As of right now, it's really just Phil Spencer claiming that the Elder Scrolls 6 is over 5 years away, and he also claims to be unsure of whether it'll be on PlayStation, despite the fact that some documents also list the Elder Scrolls 6 as being on PC and Xbox only. But at the end of the day, it's really Phil Spencer who decides this stuff, so it's hard to ignore what he says. But either way, I wouldn't be shocked if we do start to hear about the Elder Scrolls 6 in the next couple of years, which is very exciting as a Bethesda fan. Most of the other content in here just makes sense. It's nice to see Dishonored 3 was planned at some point. Hopefully this will be a redemption after Redfall. The Fallout 3 remaster could also have an interesting developer, as there were some rumors that In Exile is working
Wait, I missed that one.
The Fallout 3 remaster could also have an interesting developer, as there were some rumors that In Exile is working on a Fallout game. In Exile's next game is Clockwork Revolution, we know that. But in 2021, we heard from Dealer Gaming that they were working on...
Dude, how are people not tired of this? It's like, all the punk aesthetics usually are so shit. Essentially, especially the, you know, 50, 60, 70 year Clockwork aesthetics. Ugh, it's just like, man, if I was born in a time like this, I would be deleting my Minecraft character like as a literal infant already. I could not take it.
2 Unreal Engine 5 games, and the second one was Fallout.
2 unannounced Unreal Engine 5 RPGs from In Exile, and I've heard at least one of them is Fallout.
So at the time, in 2021, Fallout in Unreal Engine made 0 sense. But what if it's a remaster of Fallout 3 using that same dual engine technique, and Unreal Engine 5 is really just for the visuals, and the other half will be using Fallout 3's original engine with Gamebryo for gameplay systems, just like with the Oblivion Remaster. We even just recently saw how In Exile is working on some game with an established IP. That obviously isn't Clockwork Revolution, so maybe they really are working on Fallout. The problem with all of this is everything is so far out. When Bethesda created this document, that Fallout 3 remaster was still 4 years away. So this project could have just been scrapped or reworked entirely after the buyout. Microsoft may have given In Exile the opportunity to create a proper Fallout spin-off instead, because In Exile just working on a Fallout remaster feels kind of light. It feels like it's a larger studio than getting...
Dude, looking at people play these games with console, I always get the feeling that they're just trying to make their life worse. It looks so awkward, it looks so bad, it doesn't look fun at all. You can clearly tell that they're missing shots that otherwise they would never miss. It's just, like, why? Why would you willingly play this game on console if you could help it? This should be some kind of form of torture.
Remaster work. So although a lot of people are just taking this list as fact now, like these are all the games we may be seeing, I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of these get mixed around or even canceled outright. And to me, the Fallout 3 remaster is definitely one of those that could have been canceled just because of how...
By the way, what year is this? Is this like, this must be before 2020, right? Because, you know, otherwise no one would be interested in this year. Well, maybe it's the early part of 2020, but, you know, this is really old.
How far out into the future it was. There's also that licensed IP game coming from Bethesda. There's a lot of rumors that this could be some kind of Star Wars related game or something to do with Lucasfilm.
Oh boy, yeah, let Bethesda fucking murder Star Wars even harder. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's probably Bethesda.
Films, but of course, as of right now, we don't really know what exactly it could be. One of the other things worth mentioning are fiscal quarters. Technically here, what we're looking at are fiscal quarters. Microsoft does have a fairly weird fiscal quarter that begins in July. Technically, we're in Q1 of 2024 right now. So it's not entirely clear what these dates actually are. On the document, it lists fiscal quarters ending on December 31st, so perhaps it's just using regular years. But honestly, at the end of the day, a lot of...
They're using July because that's probably when their accountants have done everything with taxes from the prior year. By the way, it's super simple. There are different kinds of years when you are looking at things. So yeah, this is just all the reason why it starts there is money flow things, because that's the last month when they can finish their tax shit and things like that.
These timelines are completely messed up anyway, so the exact month that these years are doesn't really matter. And yeah, that's Bethesda's entire planned roadmap, or at the very least, the next few years of releases are likely now revealed. It seems like the company will be very active with
You know what? I was surprised. Didn't hear a lot of copium. I heard just basic explanations and no fanboyishness. Is Juicehead actually bringing it back? Is he? Is he seeing the light that just being a blind fanboy of Bethesda is an easy way to get yourself hurt?
Releasing major titles in the not-so-distant future. I have to imagine that Summer Showcase next year will be huge, with at least a couple of these being mentioned. And when it comes to Bethesda Game Studios specifically, it seems like they might have a really busy 2024. Looking at some major Starfield DLC, mod support for Starfield, but then maybe even an Oblivion...
Wait, did he just fucking ignore those energy leeches?
Remaster. A Starfield DLC coming out over the summer like they've done in the past with an Oblivion Remaster in fall would definitely set them up for a very successful 2024.
People would just laugh about that more. Because you know they're gonna remake the games by not fixing any issues of the games. Well, anyway, that was from Juicehead. Wow, this was way less fanboyish than I expected. It is what it is. Sometimes you get got. Anyway, this was Quizzer7. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.